Hello, 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 hello. Glad to have all of you with us today. Those of you who are joining us live, and those of you who will take a catch this later, I appreciate you all being here. I see we already have Christine on. Hello, Christine. Glad to have you. Let me know that you're here, that you're still with us. I think you've been on for a minute. It looks like what 5:30. You commented. It was about 30 minutes ago. So let me know if you're still on. Also, let me know if you can hear me, if my sound quality is good. Um, I'm, as usual, I'm going to wait a few minutes and give some more people time to join. But again, glad to have you guys on. I keep saying this, one of these days I'll have some intro music, some waiting music or music like we're in the waiting room. But in the meantime, I'll just kind of talk about stuff related or not related to today's topic. Just kind of ramble on. But glad to have everyone. Let me make sure this chat is still working. Good afternoon, Sharon. Can you hear me, Sharon? How is my volume? Hopefully, it's good. Let's see. Can I make a comment? Yeah, I make a comment. Okay, that's the check was for the comment. So good to have you, Sharon. Arizona, right? How is? I know it's hot. But I like Arizona. I keep saying that. My wife says it's too hot, but I like Arizona. But yeah, I'll make an announcement now, and then I'll make the same announcement later toward the end when everyone else is on. So this is going to be my last podcast for a few months. I'm going to take a summer break. I'm kind of exhausted with everything that's going on with school and this and running our business and doing this podcast. I need to take a break and kind of recharge and do some summer type things. So I'm going to lay low. I'll probably do some TikTok videos over the next 3 months, but we'll be back toward the end of August or early September. So it's not going anywhere, but I'm just kind of taking a break from that. And so just wanted to make that announcement. So this will be the last one until the fall or late summer, depending on how we look at it. But yeah, Sherry says hot. Yeah, school is out, 5 classes and 5 eighths. Yeah, I school is out for me. I had another 4.0, so that's good. So I have a cumulative of a 4.0 with this grad program, religious studies. So I'm doing well there, just a little exhausted. I'm actually taking summer classes. So I'll take a class that starts in about 3 weeks, about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think because I just got to notice that I might have jury duty. So I got to try to figure out how to get out of that. But I know that's bad. But I really want to take this class. I got to take this class this summer. And I'm also will be working on my perspectives for my thesis. I'm going to write a thesis. Have to write a thesis in order to graduate, finish my master's program. I'm going to. The plans are. I think the last time I spoke with you guys, I think the plans were to try to pursue a PhD. Not. Don't think we're going to do that. I'm just kind of exhausted, tired. I'm a little older, and I don't think I got the energy. I don't think I have the energy to go through all of that. But I'm going to take the thesis that I'm writing for grad school. I'm going to turn the thesis into, which would be my what is that? My fifth book, but this would be my second book on the topic of religion. And so hopefully we're going to turn that thesis into a book, and maybe get it instead of self-publishing. Maybe we can shop it to a publishing company. So anybody know any publishing companies out there that'll take a book about non-belief or non-religion or living without God or whatever? Let me know. Um, that'd be awesome. But yeah, so that's what's going on with me here. So we'll get started. Taisha may join us. I spoke with her via Facebook or text message the other day. She is very busy, but as I always do, I start off with by thanking her for all the things that she's done, all the wonderful work she's done with me to get me to this point, and what she will continue to do. And we're so appreciative of Taisha. Again, go out there, support Taisha Essex Pages and her podcast and the work that she's doing. She's busy with her newborn. And she's doing some other stuff, some podcast work that's related to raising a newborn and that kind of stuff. So among all the stuff that she's been doing before. So we're thankful to Taisha. Appreciate it so much, and hopefully she joins us today. Um, and then secondly, but certainly not last, I'd like to thank my wonderful wife, Salima, who's always supportive, who's um, giving me some good ideas, who's extremely supportive, who does a lot of the stuff on the back end, editing and some other stuff, who's always 100% supportive of what we're doing here with this channel. So certainly appreciate those two, as I always say. And let's say we will get started. Sharon, if I didn't say congratulations before, congratulations. That is awesome. 5 A's, five classes, 5 A's. It's a lot of work. And you say it's hot there. I'm sure, sure it is. Um, so today's topic is a continuation of the last time we were together, and we talked about Jesus is harmful. Why is Jesus/God harmful to the African American community? Sort of a recap. We started off and we talked. We only got to like three of the topics. I think there were six that I wanted to touch on, but we got to three, which is good. I wanted to take our time and really go deep into these topics. But sort of a recap. We talked about uh, uh, finance, and we talked about how God, or the pursuit of this God or this Jesus, impacts our finances in a negative way. So we talked about all of the money that people in the community, those of us in the African American community, give to the church in the form of tithes and offerings. And those are two different things, at least at the churches that I've attended across the southeast and out west. Those have always been two separate things. So we give tithes and we give offering. But we talked about how those financial resources have drained the community, and the money that we give, the financial resources that we give to the church, are in return sent off to banks, larger banks, smaller banks, even if they're community banks. But then the banks, in a lot of cases, refuse to lend the money back out to the members of the community so that we can do things like start businesses, create things that can better help the community. We're also taking money out of the community directly that can be used in a direct manner to help the community. Things like building community centers, teaching people to read or write, teaching people better job skills, creating parks, grocery stores with healthy food, um, a number of things those financial resources can be used for. And we talked about that. And again, we're not saying these are all the churches in the communities that do this or that don't give back or just take the money and run. But far too many of them do that, and there's not enough of giving back to the community with the resources, the financial resources that we've given to the churches. And we those financial resources could be better used, better serve the community if they didn't go to the church first. In a lot of cases, and I would argue in most cases, looking around and seeing what's not being done in the church. So we talked about the finances. We also talked about relationship, and understand a lot of the stuff that we discussed and that we will be discussing today. Those topics have been breached in my book. Um, what's the book? The book is From Saved to Sane: My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity Has Been Detrimental to the African American Community. So a lot of these topics came from that, and you can pick the book up on Amazon. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, so we talked about relationships. We talked about how this pursuit of God and Jesus in the church and the lessons that we hear from the pastor, how that negatively impacts our relationships. That we are, especially for a lot of our women, because if you notice, the African American churches, many of them are about two-thirds women and children. Not a lot of men outside of the deacons and the pastors and those in leadership. If you go to any church in the Black community and you look out into the audience, you'll see a majority of women and children and not a lot of men. And so um, it is my opinion and my experience that a lot of times the pastor and some of these sermons and just the way that we interpret scripture sets us up, especially our women, set our women up for unrealistic expectations from their significant others, the men in their life, the significant other, the men in their life. Those expectations are unreal. The pastor would say this is what your husband or your significant other should be doing or should not be doing. The woman goes and brings that to the man. The man is not at all happy in a lot of cases because a lot of men, most men, don't appreciate another man telling his woman how his household should be ran or the household that he's a part of, how that household should be ran. Um, and so that is a bone of contention there a lot of times. So in our relationships, we're also women are also told we're all also told how relationships are supposed to act and supposed to go, and that's not always the case. There are extenuating circumstances in every situation. So I just believe that in that pursuit of what we're looking for, especially our women are looking for a man of God, a man that is close to God or close to Jesus, that is unrealistic. The character of Jesus is a character that we cannot emulate as human beings. If you look at the Bible, so I think that our women come away from church looking at their man and saying you should be like this, A, B, C, and D, and the man is not. The man is only human. And so again, there's conflict in relationship based on what women are learning in church, the way relationships should be taken. Also, and I know this is touchy for many. I am a very very happily married man. I personally don't think that everyone should be married. Marriage is not for everyone. And so, with that being said, does that mean that one cannot engage in adult human activities because they're not married with a significant other, whether that be a woman or a man? That's a whole lot of things that go on there. So the church tells you that you cannot engage in human adult activities, sex, unless it's with a person of the opposite sex that you are married to. And so that creates issues and situations because for many of us, we've been in situations where we've been with someone that we're not married to, and in some cases of the same sex, and we've engaged in these activities, and so now we beat ourselves up because the church has told us that these actions are wrong, are sinful, and that we're going to hell unless we ask for forgiveness. So again, a lot of problems, a lot of issues that have been created with the church when it comes to relationships. So we discussed that. Let me take the time out to say hello to a few people. I see people have joined us. Amanda, thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad that you made it. I know you sent me a message last week and we talked about it. So glad you made it. Did you set your alarm? You set your alarm. Great. Glad to have you. Who is this? How are you? How are you? I am butchering that. I am so sorry. Let me just say hello. You said big up to you. It is Hawaii, Hawaii. I'm messing it up. I'm so sorry, but hello. Glad that you are here, and I certainly apologize for messing up your name. I really apologize. But yeah. So again, we talked about the finance the last time we were together. We talked about relationships, and then what else did we get to? I only see a couple. Did we only get to those two? Um, let's see, it was something else that we got. I'm trying to look and see. But anyway, we did talk about those two things in depth. And so today I want to finish up where we left off. Amanda say, if you guys who are new to this channel, I will oftentimes start talking and then see a comment and mention that comment because I want to make sure that everyone is involved and they have comments. So if I do that and I switch to reading the comment, I apologize, but this is kind of the way I do it. I'm just different like that. So anyway, Amanda says, I'm glad to be here. YouTube is doing me so wrong, not sending notifications. Yeah, we got to get that fixed, but thank you for being here. We certainly appreciate that. So where do we start today? So today, it's three topics that I wanted to get to so that we can conclude this. Uh, Christine said no audio. Can you hear me? Let's see. Who can you guys hear me? Amanda, Sharon, Christine, can you guys hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Let's see. Okay, all right. So maybe it's Christine. Maybe Christine, maybe it's on your end. Amanda says she can hear me. Okay, cool. Okay, got it. All right, great. Phew, I was worried there for a minute. I was just rambling on. So anyway, so today, what are we going to discuss today to kind of conclude this and wrap this up? We're going to talk about self-esteem, health, and education. And in the context of how our pursuit, our being the community, African American community, our pursuit of God or Jesus negatively affects those three areas of our life. So let's begin with self-esteem. And this is sort of a big one for me. Those of you who are part of the church, have been part of the church at any point in your life, the very first thing I think that we're told, and that you may have experienced as well, is that you are a born sinner, and that you are nothing without this God or Jesus character. That you can't do anything for yourself. Everything that happens to you that's good is because of this God or Jesus character, and that totally destroys our self-esteem. So you're already coming into the world believing that you are less than, and for us it is double impactful, because we're been told in the church that we're nothing, that we're sinful, that we're wretched, that we're less than, and then as African Americans trying to exist on this earth, in this world, we're told the same thing by others, non-black people, and in some cases, even some black people. So it's a double whammy. It's double impactful on the negative side, because you're told that from a child that you're sinful, and that you're incomplete, and that you're not whole, and that you're wretched, and that you're nothing. And then you get into society, and as you age, or matriculate through society, you're told by those individuals who don't look like you, but who are also human, that you're also second class citizens, and that you're nothing, and that you're less than, and that you need the assistance of others. And so this builds up an incredible amount of low self esteem that we have within our communities. And so but what it also does, it is that it indoctrinates us to needing to always think that we need someone outside of us to fix and solve our problems, because we're not enough. We're not worthy, and we're not enough. And so, how does that manifest itself in the larger picture of things? So it makes us, as a collective group, it makes us comfortable with having people who don't look like us ruling over us, because again, remember, we're not enough. We're sinful, we're wretched, we're incomplete, we need others. So we begin with seeing the images of a white God or white Jesus as our savior, right? And that matriculates into, now we see the government as our savior. We see others who don't look like us outside of our community as our savior, police officers, teachers. And so we become really, really comfortable with people in superior positions to us not looking like us. And we get comfortable. You watch some of the athletes. Why is it that our young black men are more comfortable with having white coaches than they are with having black coaches? Why is it that some of us are more comfortable with having white managers and white supervisors and white bosses than we are with having someone in those same positions that look like us, right? Um, why is it that some of us in our communities are comfortable with having the government as our safety net than relying on one another? Why is it that we go out here and we're more comfortable with shopping and doing business with communities and others who don't look like us? Because we feel like that they have all the answers, and that they, in a sense, becomes our savior as well. So don't get it confused. This is all connected. Again, I always talk about connecting the dots. Westernized Christianity is the religious arm of white supremacy. Whether we indirectly or directly do it, the indoctrination is real. It begins at an early age. We start off with this image of a white Jesus telling us that we need this individual in order for us to be complete and whole, and for us to accomplish anything. And when anything good happens, no matter how hard we work for it, we are always told to give this individual, this character, the credit, right? So we go to school, and most of our teachers are white. And so the ones who we look up to, our teachers who are supposed to be teaching us because they theoretically know more than what we know, those teachers are white. And so we see that, and we get into the real world, and our bosses are white, our coaches are white, our supervisors are white, the police officers are white, our politicians are white, all of that. And so we have this, so we're mentally and emotionally, our self-esteem is beat down. And so when we come up to one another, we hate one another because we see another brother or sister who looks like us. We see them as the same as us. We see them as worthless. We see them as not being enough. We see them as wretched. We see them as sinful, right? And we see the other outside of our community as just the opposite. And so this is dangerous. This is a dangerous rhetoric. This is dangerous indoctrination. This is dangerous teaching that we get from our church, because that's the first place usually that we're taking and that we start to learn, even before school. I remember. I remember being in church before I was in school. Uh, and so we start that early teaching, and is you're nothing, you're wretched. And so I have a problem, even when I was a Christian or a believer. I didn't like the concept of sin, right? So to me, sin is this. If someone is telling you that they can save you from a punishment that they created, that is extortion. if if a drug dealer come to you and say, "Listen, um, I'm going to allow you to run this store, but you got to pay me in order for you to run the store so that I won't destroy the store or kill you." That's extortion. So what God is saying to you is that if you bow down and praise me, then I'm not going to put you in hell, the hell that I created, because you won't bow down and praise me. Well, that's extortion. So now I got to praise him in order for him not to send me to the hell that he created because I wouldn't praise him. See, again, this thing called critical thinking, a lot of our people lack the whole critical thinking thing. And so this whole self-esteem, which is you ask yourself, and and I'm even a critical thinker when I watch television or whatever I'm doing in the world, and I watch people, I watch the way we move, and I watch how we act, and I watch how we do things, and there's um, I'm always using sports analogy because I love sports, but sports analogies are great. And so when I see a young man who finally reaches his goal of making it to the NBA or the NFL or whatever it is, right? And he talks about how hard he worked and all the sacrifice that he's done, and what the family has sacrificed. But the first thing he does is, well, let me give God all the credit. And you wonder to yourself, why don't you see that as much with white athletes or white entertainers? Because even our rappers, even our singers do the exact same thing. It's because for so long from the very beginning, we've been told that you have to be humble, and you have to show humility, and you have to show grace, and give this God the credit, regardless of how hard you work, regardless of it, right? And so that manifests itself in everything that we do. And so, and what that does is that doesn't allow us to take pride in the work that we've done. And I think I've told the story before on here. Let me read one of these comments. Christina said, total nonsensical thinking. Absolutely. And Amanda said, westernized religion is the arm of white supremacy. Absolutely. Westernized Christianity is the religious arm of white supremacy. It is a tool that they use to control us and keep us down. Um, exactly. Amanda said, I would like to thank God and then mom, but never self. I think I've told the story before. I got into it with a lady. I didn't really get into it, but we had words and comments on a Facebook post she made. Um, she talked about her son had a 4.0, and and she didn't mention anything about. First thing she said was, "Oh, ain't God great? My son has a 4.0," and that was it. She didn't talk about how hard the son worked, the sacrifices. Those of us, all of us have been in school. All of us have accomplished things, and we know what kind of sacrifice it takes for someone to make a 4.0. I've never had a 4.0 until I got in grad school. This is my fourth school. outside of grade school, right? So I've been to, this will be my third master's degree, and I spent a year in law school. And this is the first time I've ever had a 4.0 because I've never wanted to work that hard. And I've never really had to work that hard because I've been able just to get by and do just enough to have decent grades. So I know how hard it is, how difficult it is to have a 4.0. I have worked and worked and worked extremely hard. But this woman talking about how God is good because her son had a 4.0. And I asked her, I said, well, are you not going to give your son any credit? Because I'm sure that he made a lot of sacrifices to obtain this 4.0, and he worked really, really hard. And she kind of got upset. And then I said, well, let me ask you another question. I said, if he had got a 3.1, I mean, if he had a 1.3 GPA, right? Would you have given the blame to God? Would you have blamed God? And the answer is no. You would have talked about how horrible your son is, how much he didn't study, how lazy he was, or how he struggled in these classes, or whatever the reason being. But you would not have blamed God. So on the one hand, you give God all the credit for all the hard work that your son has done to obtain this 4.0. But if he had received a 1.3 on his GPA, then you wouldn't have given the blame to God. So again, that's that self-esteem, that beat down. And so the church needs us to have low self-esteem. The church needs us to need something outside of us for us to continue to come. And I will say this. I think I pause and hesitate because I don't want to offend anyone, but I think the church does a fantastic job of preying upon, and not Praying, but Preying. I think the church and religion does a fantastic job of preying on our women, the women in the African American community, because I watch, and I am a product of a single mother who worked multiple jobs. I did have a stepfather for a few years, but he was horrendous, horrible. Didn't even work. My mother worked and took care of the whole house. So this is not something that I've heard. This is something that I lived, and so I think what happens is that the church does a fantastic job of taking advantage of those women, because they're a lot of our women are in situations where they're raising kids by themselves, or they can't find a sustaining relationship, or the job is difficult. All of those things that come along with life, it is worse for single black women and single mothers. And so that beat down of your self-esteem, the church needs you to feel low, so that you can come running to the church, and so you can get, God is going to help you. Jesus is going to take care of you, but because you're nothing without God. Every little thing that you have that's good is because God did that for you. Yet here you are working three jobs, taking care of your kids, making sure they have everything that they need, but yet all the credit goes to this God, right? And so the church does a fantastic job of doing that. And so that whole self-esteem stuff. So Christina said exactly. The church needs your victimization. The church needs us to be victims. And I think we're going to touch on this a little bit later under the education part. But there are studies out there that show that the better off an individual is, the less that individual tends to attend church, tends to go to church. And that's not across the board. It's just, I mean, this is not everyone, because I know there are people who are very well off. There are mega churches that do extremely well. But generally speaking, the more educated, the more successful, the more financially a person is, the less issues that an individual has, the less they go to church. And some of these individuals who are well off, who do well financially, who might not have the mental or emotional issues that they have, they may still go to church, but it might be just for the social aspect of it. It may be because this is where they see their friends, or this is the community church, or this is where their kids meet their friends, or maybe because it's something that they need to do, or maybe some sense of guilt where, again, this whole you're very successful, but it's because of God. And so now this person goes to church to kind of show gratitude to God, in the sense of showing, with God, I'm thankful that you've blessed me, quote unquote. So let me attend church. But generally speaking, there are studies out there that'll show you and tell you that the more successful and the less issues that people have, the less they tend to go to church. And the opposite is also true. The poor, the struggle, the people who struggle more also tend to go to church more because they're going to church because they're looking for hope. They're looking for something that's going to change their situation. That's why they pay tithes. It's not because, well, I feel no, they pay tithes because in the hope, because the pastor has told them in the way that that the scriptures have been interpreted. The more you give, the more God is going to give you. And that is an absolute fallacy. I watched a woman and my mother give everything that she ever had to the church for decades, and her financial, physical, health, and emotional situation never got better. As a matter of fact, it got worse. And I watched this for a number of decades until she passed away in 2017 at the age of 67. But I watched it as a kid all the way till I was an adult, and the situation never changed. And she was relentless about giving money to the church and paying her tithes. Relentless to the point that her and I had several arguments about this. Several once I was grown, because I was not in a position as a child to argue with my mother. She would not hear that. But as a grown adult, we did have these discussions, these heated discussions about her giving money to the church when she was poor, dirt poor, Section 8, the whole 9 yards, and the money that my sister and I gave her, she was taking that and running to the church instead of paying her bills. But yeah, so that's one of the things that we talk about. So the whole self-esteem issue, and I can go on and on and on on that, but I want to touch on some issues. Um, Feel free to leave your comments about the whole self-esteem issue. But I think it's important because this goes to our mindset. It goes to how we carry ourselves. This goes to this whole humility thing. We always want to feel humble and because we don't feel worthy. That is dangerous. That is dangerous. Every other group of people um, feels prideful in who they are. It is dangerous for us to have this low self-esteem that is initially brought on by the way scriptures are interpreted in our churches and the things that we're taught in our churches. The biggest truth seeker, glad to have you. Glad you're here. So you're glad to catch the line. I'm glad that you're here too. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. And so we talked about self-esteem has been a problem with this pursuit of this Jesus and God and the church, how that affects our self-esteem. It lowers our self-esteem. It hurts us in every aspect of our life. As we were trickling through life, beginning as a child, we see it. It manifests in every aspect of our life. So the second thing that I want to touch on was health. So there's a direct correlation between our pursuit of this God and Jesus and our health, and there's an indirect correlation between it. So let's begin with the direct correlation. So the direct correlation is this: those of you who've gone to church and spent any time in church, you know that in most of our churches, especially in our community, we love eating. We love to have these potluck dinners and bring food. And 9.9 times out of 10, this food is not healthy. I remember as a child, we lived probably, and I grew up in Birmingham, so we probably lived about 30 minutes from our church. And in Birmingham, that's a long way. We're not accustomed to driving. I mean, I live in Atlanta now, and so 30 minutes is nothing. We live in Atlanta. But living in Birmingham, 30 minutes was a long way. So we would go to church, and in between services, because we would have 11 o'clock service, which started at about 11:45, and then we would have 3 o'clock service, which started at about 3:30. But in between services, we would have to get something to eat, and so we didn't have a lot of money at all. But there were families in the neighborhood that went to the church that would be like, my mother name was Sarah. Sarah, you come on, you bring your kids. Willie and Charlotte, my sister's name is Charlotte. You come over and we'll have food for you. And let me tell you, the food was awesome and the food tasted great. But it wasn't healthy for you. Now I am a healthier eater. I mind what I eat most of the time. I try to be healthy, but back then it was not the food was not the healthiest. And so when we have these potluck dinners and we bringing this food on and we look at our health situation within the church, the members of our church with high blood pressure and diabetes. In my book, I did the research, and there is a correlation between African Americans who attend church and and bad health. So we tend to be less healthy those of us who attend church, those African Americans who attend church on a regular basis, tend to be less healthy. Part of it is because of the food that we eat around the church, whether it be Saturdays or Sundays after service, whether it be Wednesday night Bible study, whether it be potluck dinners, whether it be whatever it is. We used to have a little basement in our church where they actually cook food or warm food up. And so that food is not necessarily healthy. And so that's a direct correlation. Let me read some of these comments before I get to the indirect correlation. So, um, Amanda says, when my mother calls me crying about waiting on God to fight some natural battles, I want to throw my phone in it. She's an evangelist of 40 years. You know, my mother, and I think I might have told my mother never drank and she never smoked, and she was never obese. However, she at the time of her death, she was on 21 medications. My wife is a former nurse, and so we took a look at that. She was on 21 different medications. She had everything: high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, heart condition, asthma, you name it. And I can attest that all of that came from just the bad diet. A couple of years before she died, I remember she was telling me that she had ran into this organization that told her that they wanted to come into the church and they wanted to put together this wellness program, this fitness program for the church. And first of all, I was shocked that my mother actually was a point person for this because healthy was not her thing as far as exercise. Well, she never exercised at all, never. But she was naturally kind of small. But so I was surprised that she was a point person for this. But she told me, she said, Willie, I took this wellness program back to the church, and it was going to be free of charge. As a matter of fact, they was going to pay them a little bit to get on this wellness program and get healthy. And she said the church voted it down. The church totally refused to get on this wellness program, and I wasn't shocked. I was just kind of like, God, can you believe that? So yeah, so it was one of those things. So yeah, yeah, Amanda. So Christina said, then they tell these victims, if you are faithful to death, you will receive a crown, but your own crown is much cheaper. Absolutely. Um, Meta says it ain't healthy, but it made us happy. You're right. It did make us happy. The food was good, but that was we grew up with that. We didn't, and most of us didn't think about the health ramifications. At least now, our generation is more thinking about it, and the generations after us are certainly thinking about it. But it became a situation, and I don't know if this has been you guys' experience, but the people that I grew up with, again in Alabama, the Bible Belt, um, the black people, the adults that I was around as a child, as a young person, they expected to get sick. I mean, they expected to get high blood pressure. They expected to get diabetes. They expected to have high cholesterol. They expected to have heart disease. They expected to have cancer. They just thought that it was inevitable, that this was just part of being black or being an adult or whatever. And I tell the story. I remember vividly one of the many times that my wife and I had to drive from Atlanta to Birmingham to see my mother in the hospital because she was always in the hospital. Um, a friend of hers came by, and this gentleman was he worked with her. And at the time, I think my mom had just gone on dialysis. She was having some problems with her kidneys. Uh, And I remember the guy came in, and my wife and I are sitting there. And my wife is like 115 pounds. She's like extremely healthy. As a matter of fact, she's a vegetarian vegan. She doesn't even eat meat very rarely. And this was even before then. She was just really healthy, but not to that state. So her and I are sitting there, and the guy walks in and he says, um, he's talking to my mother. He said, "Well, can you tell me more about this whole process of what you're going through?" He said, "Because I know it's going to happen to me." And when he said that, it just I think for some other people it might have gone over their head, but my wife and I looked at each other and we said, "Wait, wait, wait! Why do you think that this is going to happen to you?" He said, "Well, happens to all of us." And I remember us leaving the hospital, walking away, my wife and I saying that, this is not going to be us. I mean, this is not inevitable. I don't know why we as African Americans think that this is our only option. We can do better. I mean, we can exercise, we can work out, we can eat better. I mean, there's no guarantee, but at least do everything in your power, do everything that we can do to try to be healthier, right? And it's just the fact that this guy he just knew that this was going to happen. I mean, this was just, he knew that this was in his future, and so it was kind of sad. But we always kind of remember that. So again, but he was a deacon in the church. Um, this was one of his things with the church, and so yeah. Um, so Amanda said it ain't healthy, but it made us happy. It did make us happy. Yes, Christine, LOL. Amanda said name 3 black world-renowned pastors who aren't sick or overweight. Yeah, you got, you got the only way they have to be really young, in their early 20s or early 30s. But once they get past that stage, they are, and just seeing them, like if you see them, let's say they're in their 20s or 30s, and you see them and they appear to be in shape, still doesn't mean that they don't have high blood pressure or diabetes or maybe not be, taking medication. So we still don't know. But generally speaking, it is one of the reasons why I can always I can always identify a pastor or a deacon because they just have that look. They just have that look. And I'm not going to go into details because I don't want, I'm trying not to offend people because I have some really good friends who are pastors and who are deacons. I mean, really good friends. So, and if they ever listen to this, I don't want them to be offended, but they just have that look. You know what I mean? So, so Christine is laughing. Amanda, wow, shaking my head. So yeah, so absolutely. And so let's look at it from an indirect standpoint. Again, we're talking about the health. So when we get into church and we get deep into the church and we become really, really, really devout, for many of us, the only thing that's important or the most important thing is that the fact that we're saved. Being saved trumps everything. I mean, it's like it is the goal at the end of the rainbow. It is like, yo, I am saved. I mean, you could do anything else. You could be the worst. You could be an asshole. You could be the worst person possible. And trust me, like many of you, I know some believers who are complete assholes, right? But they're saved. And so this whole concept of pursuing Jesus and God and being saved at all costs puts everything else in our life on the back burner. It's all about being saved. As long as I'm saved, then nothing else matters. As long as I'm saved and I'm a God-fearing person, then you should love me the way I am. And so that means that everything else is second, third, fourth priority, including our health. And so we put our health on the back burner because, listen, I got to go to church Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, all day Sunday because I'm saved. That's the most important thing to me. I don't have time once I've worked, once I take care of the kids. I don't have time to exercise or eat healthy or take care of my health. But I'm saved, and that's the most important thing. And that's the only thing that you should worry about. And that's the only thing that should matter. So again, this pursuit of God and Jesus and being saved oftentimes pushes everything else to the back burner, including our health. Walk into any church, any African American church today, and look at the individuals in that church who are, let's say, over the age of 25 or 30. And I promise you, 80% of them are overweight. It is not a coincidence that African Americans as a collective group are, number one, the most devout religious group in the country, but number two is also the most unhealthiest. There's a connection there. There's a correlation there to that. Our focus, again, I tell people all the time, and they don't believe me. I tell people all the time, and I will say this until I leave this earth. Um, we are the only group. We are the only group of people who live our lives completely through the prism of our faith. Now, there are even white evangelicals will say and talk a good game about their faith, but the way they live their life is about self-preservation. That's where you get white supremacy from. So that's why you can see white evangelical Christians who are also white supremacists, right? Because it's not about living their life through the prism of the Bible or this Jesus characters and things that he did. It is about living their life through self-preservation, preserving who they are, preserving their culture, preserving their people, uh, preserving this country for their kids. And they use Christianity or religion as a tool to continue to push that agenda of white supremacy. But us, on the other hand, we live everything through the prism of our faith and for most of us, Christianity or Islam. For those African Americans who are Muslim, we live it through that prism. So everything that we do comes off of that. Our scheduling, how we eat, how we talk to people, where we go. Everything is through that prism. And that can be a dangerous thing because we neglect other parts of our life, right? Because it's all about being saved, getting to heaven, and getting the closest seat we can to Jesus and God, right? And so, again, that's detrimental. We look at our health and the self esteem. Let me read some more of the comments. Let's see. I started by parking at the back of the parking lot at Target and Walmart and walking a longer distance. Absolutely. We just have to be, man, it's really just about being mindful. None of us are perfect in what we do. It's just about us being mindful. It's about us saying, I want to live. None of us have an idea of when we're going to pass, but I tell people all the time, I said, me being healthy is not about me necessarily living longer because I don't control that. But what it is about me, as long as I'm going to live, it's about me having a high quality of life, the best quality of life that I can have. So I can live to be 70, I can live to be 100, but if I can't get around from the age of 75 to 100, then that's 25 years that I probably don't want to be here. If I can't do for myself, if I can't get around, if someone has to feed me, do I really want to live that last 25 years? Or I can live to 70 or 80 and be very healthy and do all the things I want to do, hike, be outdoors, be around people, do everything I want to do. And that'll be a fantastic quality of life. So that's really what it's about. And so again, with this podcast and this channel, we talk about practical stuff. We always talk about why Christianity is a problem for our community. It's not just a subjective. I don't like religion. Well, it's about, well, let's look at the harm that this faith has done to us as a collective group, and how can we fix it? How can we do better as a collective group? So absolutely. Uh, let's say, but I'm back to park at the front too, to many shooters. Amanda, you're right. Absolutely. That's a whole nother topic. Amanda, yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that. I don't. It is. I think I might have told you guys. Have I seen you guys since the shooting here in Atlanta? Uh, my wife and I were literally 5 minutes away from the shooting, and that was like enough. I mean, that was just too close for comfort. We were 5 minutes away from the shooting here in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, yeah, even to the point where at some point we're probably gonna look to retire or get out of this country. If it's not for a while, then definitely for retirement. So at some point, you might see me doing these podcasts from somewhere else, Mexico or uh, Barcelona or somewhere, somewhere outside this country. So yeah, that's a whole other topic. We have to put that in. Amanda said, Rob Parsley, Paula White, etc. Yep. Christine said, teach, thank you, especially since WS, white supremacy, know their numbers are in decline. Absolutely. It is about self-preservation for them. That's all it's about. And Christianity, just like anything else, is just a tool. It's just a tool. And they understand how powerful that tool is, especially when holding African Americans at bay. It is a powerful tool for holding African Americans at bay, Christianity. That is another reason why we have to let this religion go. Um, let's see, Gemini. Hey, what's going on, Gemini? Glad to have you with us. Hello, everyone. Hello, Gemini. Good to have you. You finally caught it. I'm glad that you're here with us live. We appreciate it. Mo Wheat said late, shaking my head. Hey, y'all, don't worry about it. You can go back and listen to it, but we're gonna continue. We got about 10, 15 more minutes, so we'll do that. Christina saying greetings to everyone. Gemini said, thank you for having this discussion. It's nice knowing other AAs have not only left the church, but left the faith as well. Absolutely. And let me make this completely clear. Not only have I left the church, I left the church in 2015. And then my leaving the faith has been a journey. It has been a transition over a period of time. But I have completely left the faith as well. So yeah, yeah, I'm all in. I'm all on the other side. So he said, can I start from the beginning for you? You can go back and listen to this from the beginning, Bo. Appreciate that. So the last point I wanted to touch on here in this segment is about education and what it does to us. So again, the pursuit of this God, Jesus, this religion, this Christianity dumbs us down. It literally dumbs us down. Um, I had this to happen to me. Christine said, "No, you must catch the replay." So I had this happen to me. So let's see. 2015, I left the faith. So about 2017, I had been a member of what's called National Speakers Association as a professional motivation as a professional speaker. And at the time, I kind of wanted to be a motivational speaker. That's a whole other story. There's way too many motivational speakers out there. That's just my opinion. It's hard to motivate 40-year-olds because we have a life. Um, but at the time, that's what I was calling myself. But at that moment, I had started to transition over into talking more about religion and my journey away from Christianity. And I went to one of the meetings that we had here locally with the National Speakers Association. And the speaker spoke, and after the speaker got through speaking, I raised my hand, I asked a question, and the question was about, listen, I said, my topic is about freedom from religion or freedom of religion. I think I said freedom of religion. And so I wanted to know how can I publicize that topic and get speaking engagements based on that topic by this being the Bible Belt. So I asked the question. She answered the question. After that, this nice little white lady walked up to me and said, "Hey, brother." She said, "Hey, brother. I heard your question, and so I assumed that you are a brother of mine, a brother in Christ." And I said, "Actually, no, ma'am, I'm not." I said, "I used to be, but I'm no longer a Christian." And she said, "Really?" And so she was sort of intrigued. She said, "Well, why did you leave the faith and blah, blah, blah? And what caused you to leave the faith?" As I said to her, I said, "Well, I started reading, I started doing a lot of research. Um, Things just didn't make sense to me once I started reading and doing my research." She said, "Oh," her exact words, "Oh, you're one of them." I said, "Excuse me, what do you mean by one of them?" She said that you are one of them educated people. Um, and this is her telling me, which is stats that I knew at the time or learned since then. She said, "Well, historically, the more educated a person becomes, the less religious they tend to be. Not all, but some people." And so that was just her position, and she was just kind of like, "Oh yeah." So it's almost like reading and educating yourself um, is a problem for a lot of people in religion. Now, and I know with this podcast because I have many, many friends who are highly educated. I have friends who are PhDs, who are scientists who do this kind of work and are extremely devout. Extremely devout, and so they would give me pushback, and I've had these discussions with them. And I said, you're looking at it from an individual standpoint. Yes, you are highly educated, you are well read, you are well traveled, and you are very, very devout and religious. I said, but generally speaking, if you go and take a look at the stats of scientists, people who have PhDs in science, they have the largest percentage of non-believers in any segment, any work segment, are scientists, individuals like that, right? In that field, in the field of science, people with PhDs. And so again, not everyone, but some people. And so, well, I say this all the time: as we become more global, uh, and our kids, our young people, have to compete on the global stage with those individuals across the world, other people across the world. There are many, many, many countries, first world countries, who are secular in nature. They are not devout Christians. They don't believe in a lot of the Christian uh, garbage or stuff that we believe in. They know that donkeys don't talk. They know snakes don't talk. They know there was never a worldwide flood. Um, they know that there was not a man resurrected from the cross that went to heaven. They know that the dead don't get up and start walking and talking again. They know all of this stuff. But if we continue to teach our kids that the stuff that they learn in the Bible is history and fact, then our kids go out into the real world sounding like idiots. Um, and so that's a caution. And so and to that effect, our young people, our kids are pushing back on us because they can Google, now they can check us instantly. They can check the pastor, they can check the Sunday school teacher. Those of you who know, I am um, I am in school working on my master's degree. And in the fall, I will be teaching a class. It's like a basic religion class on all religions. So this semester, I had to sort of shadow the professor that's teaching that class now, and then I got opportunity to teach a class. So the class is this is at Georgia State. Those of you who are not familiar with Atlanta, Georgia State is the largest school in the state. It's about 55,000 students combined, but it's also a school that's in the city. I mean, it's smack dab in the middle of the city, sort of like downtown Atlanta. So it is extremely diverse. It is everything that you hear about a very liberal institution, everything that you'll find. So in this class, this particular class that I was shadowing, it was about 20 students. Um, some white students, a couple of Indian students, a couple of Asian students, and about 3 or 4 black students. And what I found amazing, and this is on topic. What I found amazing was that whenever the professor talked about, because the professor was is I was I'm actually older than the professor by 3 years, but we both are from the same generation, and we both come from the same. We're both from Alabama, and so we had some of those common traits with each other. But anyway, anytime he mentioned anything about the Bible that most of us would take as just common knowledge, like the Virgin Mary, the Adam and Eve story, the Great Flood, many of the kids, the young students in that class, had never heard of that. I'm telling you, I know this sounds crazy because it made my mouth just drop. Like they had never heard of this. Like they had like really like what? A great flood. Who is Adam? Who is Eve? Like they had never, and so this is second nature to us. I mean, it's like our generation growing up, black people in the South, you breathe, you go to church, you go to school. I mean, that's your life, right? These kids had never heard of it. And even a couple of kids was like, well, if you start telling me the story, maybe I can remember some of it or whatever. But like they had no clue. And afterwards, the professor, myself, and the other 3 student teachers would talk afterwards, and we all were just amazed that many of these students had never heard these stories. So I say that to you to say that a lot of these last 2 generations are not in church anymore. They're not getting the stuff that we've been getting. They're not getting the indoctrination that we've been getting. So to them, they understand that this is fiction, the Bible and the stories of the Bible, but there's still a large part of especially our community, African American community, where we teach our kids this, and then they regurgitate it as if it's fact and as if it's history, and if there's some objective evidence to all of this, and it's not. And so, hopefully, that kind of weeds itself out. But I think it's dangerous that our kids really believe and take this as we say gospel truth or gospel fact. And so it is dangerous on the education side of it, that we believe a lot of this stuff, that we will argue with people about this stuff. That's where we get the curse of Ham from. That's why, again, another reason going back up to our low self-esteem. A lot of times we think this stuff is real. Also, this stuff manifests itself in a lot of things that we believe about our ancestors coming from Africa. We mix stories together. We talk about the Bible, and we talk about, well, we're in the position that we're in because we disobeyed God, and so for 400 years this is going to happen to us, and this is why our ancestors, sold us into slavery. I mean, so we start to interweave all of this stuff, and it's completely not factual, and we don't know the full story, the whole story, and we continue to regurgitate the stuff to generations and generations and generations, and we sound like idiots when we do this. And so that's one of the things that's one of my pet peeves. I don't want us to walk around here sounding like idiots when we talk about history. When we talk about our history. We always talk about where the Bible is about us. No, it's not. No, it's not. Again, some of that same stuff that we go into. Those of you who've had experiences with Hebrew Israelites and the whole, and I've had my share of battles with them as well. Again, we need to educate ourselves more. We need to do more reading outside the Bible. We need to read stuff about the Bible, about how the Bible was composed, how it was put together. We need to understand all of this before we go spouting off like this stuff is real and this stuff is history. And so, to conclude, talking about the self-esteem issue, why that's a problem. with our pursuit of this Jesus God and why that's harmful. Talked about the health issues. We talked about education. The last time we were together, we talked about the financial part of it and relationships. And so together, these 5 things, financial, relationships, self-esteem, health, and education, are just the tip of the iceberg as to why and how this Christianity thing has been extremely harmful to our people and continue to be if we allow it to be. But this platform and similar platforms, we're here to kind of debunk all of this. We're here to provide a safe space that we can talk about this stuff and hash this stuff out, and that we all don't have to be followers and believers of this stuff. We can use our critical thinking to get over this stuff. So some of the comments before I leave, and I'll make an announcement before I leave, but let me read this. So dang, I wish I had heard. They will be well-rounded individuals. Absolutely, there will be. I find it comical that a lot of churches are using secular tactics to attract my generation. I thought the church was against certain behaviors. Gemini, that is, and let me touch on that point. That is a great point. But and so here's why it's called survival. The church understands that if it doesn't do something different, then they're not going to be able to indoctrinate the next generations. So they have to meet you, your generation, where you guys are. And so before old school, my generation and older, they were steadfast, like, no, the Bible is the Bible. It is what it is. You got to come in and get it the way we give it to you. If you don't like it, now they've softened, they've changed because they realize that your generation, Gemini, is y'all ain't coming to the church. Not in the same capacity that the church has been operating in. So the church has to change. So you see a change in the music, you see a change in the antics, the shows, the things that are going on. It is not as the sermons are not as punitive. There are certain subjects that this church that some churches won't touch because they don't want to offend your generation. And so, yeah, you see a change because the church understands that if it doesn't do this, that it will not survive and it will not be here. And so that is a good point. Let me catch. Let's see. Was it Stella, star seller? How you doing? Glad to have you. He said, right, struggling and praying hard. LOL. And it ain't working at all. That old praying, it ain't working. It ain't working. Christine said, exactly true. We are idiots. A lot of us are, absolutely. Christine is saying, greetings to Star. Star saying, at all that time sitting in church and reading the Bible could be time spent learning a skill or getting more money. Absolutely. I mean, that's as plain as anybody can put it. All that, if I think about all the time I spent in church um, over the years and all of the resources, again, we talked about finance being a resource, but our time is another resource. It is more valuable than money because we can't get our time back. There is so much more that we could have been doing with that time as opposed to being in church listening to these fictional stories about a man being swallowed by a whale. There's a lot of the things that we could have been doing. And so, absolutely. Um, Star said hello to Christine. Thank you, Christine. Let's see. Let me get to these last comments before we have to get out of here. Let's see. The church is faking the funk. Yes, they are. They're trying to survive. They're trying to survive, Amanda. They see it. They see all the churches that are closing. They see the pews are empty. They see the church is a void of young people. And so they understand, they know, and they certainly need the money. They certainly need the money. So thank you, Amanda. And I'm still not going. Absolutely. Let's, those of you who consider yourself spiritual and not religious, even if you still consider yourself religious, we don't have to go to church to be religious. You don't have to go to church to be spiritual. And you certainly don't have to go to church if you're like me, you're just a non-believer. So the most devout person that I know, which is probably at this point is probably my mother-in-law. She ain't been to church in 15, 20. She ain't been to church. We left because she's going to church with us. We left the church. It's been almost 10 years since she's been to church. So she hasn't been to church in like forever. And she is as devout as they come. So absolutely. So Christine says it's all about the money. They would do whatever necessary to get the youth in those doors. Absolutely, because they don't want to die. As a collective body, the church. Gemini said, off topic. I rewatched some episodes of Good Times. Florida faith kept the family impoverished. Okay, I'm done. I love the episode with those of all of us, most of us have seen Good Times, but the episode where Mike is telling her about the white Jesus. Man, that is hilarious. I remember the episode. My mother and I had a similar a similar incident. Uh, once I was in college, like that. But yeah, it's yeah, her yeah, but she represented, especially for that generation, she represented the typical black household. And even now today, she still represents, for a lot of us, the typical black household. And so, but it's changing slowly but surely, because the larger society is changing more rapidly. But we are don't get it mistaken. We are changing. It's a lot slower than the larger community. These are the arguments that I have with some of my professors, who are, a couple of them are devout, and I tell them all the time. I say, you're not paying attention to the younger generation. I said they are changing. They are not following along with the way that we followed along. And so yeah, so we are. It's just a lot slower. So really quick, I made this announcement early on before many of you came on. This is going to be the last podcast for until the end of the summer. I need to take a break between school, running my business, and doing this. I'm kind of exhausted. I love it, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm just taking a break until sometime in late August or early September, and then we'll start back up. I'll probably do some stuff on TikTok, and then I may just maybe June, July decide let me do one because I'm missing you guys and I want to talk about this stuff or something happens. But outside of that, look for me toward the end of August, early September, and we'll come back. We'll try to improve upon the product that we have. But thank you guys so much. It's been, I think it's probably been about a year and a half straight that we've been doing this. So I appreciate it. Love you guys. Glad to have you. You can still send me comments. Go back and watch some of the older videos. There are a lot of videos out there now. So those of you who haven't seen some of the older stuff, watch that stuff. Going all the way back to where it's Taisha and I together. Those are some really great shows. But do that. Thank you guys so much. So look for me again in late August, early September. But I will be back. I'm not going anywhere. So you guys enjoy your summer. Do some summer fun things. Take some trips, vacations, spend time with loved ones, um, and enjoy yourself. Let's see. Don't forget to follow on Instagram. Yeah, don't forget to follow me. What is my Instagram? Always, I think it's Willie Cartwright 1906. Yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, I got a lot of funny things that Christians find offensive. So yeah, follow me on Instagram. I think it's Willie Cartwright. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Let me make sure because Taisha she gets on my case about not knowing my stuff. Uh, yeah, it is. I have it's Willie Cartwright. So yeah, Willie Cartwright 1906. Willie Cartwright 1906. That's on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram. You'll see some of my stuff, my postings. I do every Sunday or every other Sunday. So I do a Good Morning Saints. So you'll see a post. And that tends to anger a lot of the believers, the Christians out there. But yeah, so you can keep up with me on that as well. So so that's good. That's all of the comments. And so I will see you guys late August, early September. We'll be back. Enjoy your summer. Thank you.